Today voters made their mark in the 2019 South African general elections. People all over the country flocked to the 22,000 polling stations so that every registered voter can have their chance to vote for the party that they would like to see in control of the country. There were a couple of places that the voting did not go as planned, but in general the voting went quite smoothly. As I visited a couple of the polling stations, everybody looked relaxed even though the queues were long and moving slow. Asking one of the police officers that were on duty if they had any reports of problems at any of the stations in the area, he confirmed that there were no reports and commended the people for being so well behaved. At some of the polling stations there were long queues for the whole day, while at other stations the voting seemed to happen in batches, being quiet one moment and then lines the next. But I can report I managed to cast my vote in what seemed to be a record time of 2 minutes from arriving till I left the station. In general, like the public standing in the lines outside in the cool weather, the staff attending to the voters was very polite and respectful. They seemed eager to help if there should be a problem. Afterwards I spoke to voters that completed their voting and they all agreed that they were happy with the treatment from the independent electoral officials. The voting polls officially closed at 9 p.m. with voters already in the lines being able to complete their voting. Once the last voter leaves the station, the long process of the count will begin. Here is what a member of the Independent Electoral Commission told a reporter from the ENCA at the Results Center.
Well, of course, we've got, apart from a few stragglers, voting in the 6th democratic election should be nearing completion. Now, the real work begins of counting the ballots, and Aldrin Sampear, standing by at the IEC Results Operations Center, is just not too far from us right now to give us the latest on that. Aldrin, the official statement obviously coming in from the IEC regarding the progress of voting, as well as perhaps when does counting officially begin?
Well, let me put that question to Msutu Miapau, who is one of the IEC commissioners. The process of counting, so now that the polling stations have closed, or those polling stations that are done, that don't have any queues, what's the process now? What happens?
The voting stations that have closed, those halls or classrooms will now be sealed or closed with the people that are in those halls. The doors will be closed, and they will start the process of verification. They will check that the ballot boxes are sealed and they've been sealed properly. Party agents will look at those and satisfy themselves. The counting officer will then begin to present each one of those ballot boxes. They will have recorded the seals in the day. They'll check that the seals are intact. And then once they are happy with that, they will then begin the process of breaking the seals in the presence of party agents, observers who are there. And they will begin to sort those ballots. To the extent that there may be objections that arise in the sorting process, there is a process of dealing with objections. Those objections must be decided upon, and then the process proceeds to sorting. Once sorted has happened, counting will then begin.
Do you raise the objection at the polling station, or is it escalated?
You raise it at the polling station. The counting officer needs to look at the objections that you raise. If somebody is not happy with that, the objection will be forwarded to the commission, and the commission will deal with it.
And then in terms of the votes then arriving finally here, how's that process leading up to it actually beaming onto the screen?
Once the process of sorting and counting has been amicably concluded, a result slip is filled. That result slip is then signed by party agents. A copy of the result is laid for people who want to take a photograph of that to keep for their records and their party's records to do so. We leave a copy in a public space, on a notice board, the door of a classroom or church hall, a public space. And the result slip that must be captured will then be sealed into a container. It will then be secured, and be driven in the presence of security where we have. We have made arrangements. Every station should be in a position to have security personnel that will escort that to a point in that municipality where we will be capturing those results. At that point, there will be party agents who will witness the receiving of the results slip, that it has not been tampered with. It's still in the container that it was sealed into. That container is tamper-proof, by the way. And then they will record it there where party agents are present to say we received it in good condition. It was received at this time, signed for by so and so, and then the process of capturing that result will begin.
At around 5 o'clock during the last press briefing, the Commissioner told us that there were about 5 polling stations that had not opened by 5 o'clock. What's the status there, and is there any alternative that the IEC has provided if indeed those stations didn't open?
We have looked at those stations. We were told that in a number of those stations there were not long queues. We said, let's wait. If at 9 there are queues, we will make a call. The Commission has authority to extend voting hours, and that's what we were going to do. If there were people in the queue, we will service those people. But if there's no one in the queue, we will then make a determination as to whether we want to extend or not extend.
But can you say whether indeed all those 5 polling stations are open?
I will have to check. As at just before 8, those stations were open. There were no long queues in them. If people began to come in their numbers, we'll certainly service those people. That's a straightforward decision.
Okay, then thank you so much, Mosotho Miepa, one of the IEC commissioners who are ensuring that this election is free and fair, but more importantly, credible as well.
As I do not know how many people will be posting result updates throughout the next couple of days, I will try to give you live updates as to the top 3 parties in the voting are faring. No discussions and no more predictions about the outcome of the elections, just the results. So keep on this channel to see the results come through as they come through. Do not forget to subscribe and like my other videos.